So that's this end. Maybe Graham will show you this pan tile.
That's the pan tile. Now, some of you will recognise that instantly. Very common, particularly in the east coast of Britain. In Scotland, very common in Fife and East Lothian, that sort of area. And it was always a bit of an enigma here that these were lying around this building, and because it's not a thing you associate with the Highlands. But apparently they were very common in Caithness, and they did appear in other places in the Highlands as well, because they were reckoned obviously better than thatch, and they were cheaper than slate. So this is what this building was covered in, and because of course they were fairly cheap, they've all kind of disappeared out of this part of the world. I don't think this was the only building locally that was covered with pan tile, because there's been a certain degree of archaeology and surveying work done over towards Borley and Clashnach, and we actually picked up a number of bits of this style of clay and put it down to field drains. But I think that needs to be reassessed in light of the fact that this actually belonged to the school. These were actually all stacked along the back outside, which again gives us an idea that the roof was deliberately taken off, and the tiles all stacked there for reuse elsewhere, and I think most of them did. And then about 20 years ago, children from the craft village kind of discovered them, and a number of them made their way up to the craft village. There's actually, if you go to the craft village, just past the chocolate shop and down the hill a bit, there's the wee gallery. They've got a little porch above their door, and it's actually got these on it. I brought a bit of plaster over. This was the plaster. Can you see the marking on the back? That's the lath, the wooden lath that was on it. So that was what we were picking up, and we eventually started to pick up plaster with a paint on it. So this room was painted grey.
Okay, well, you can probably see yourselves this is quite different to the other end of the structure, and this is really reflecting different uses of the rooms. So this is the stuff Graham was talking about, with the one end is the schoolmasters, one end is the school. Which end is which I'm not too sure yet, so we'll reserve judgment on that until we dug a wee bit more maybe. But what you can see here is a nice clay floor, which has survived quite well here, but it's obviously been in the wars, it's been patched up. This is mortar which has been put into the holes, and you've got bits and pieces of stone that look as if they've been packed in. So it's seen a fair bit of use, this floor. It's quite broken up around the sides, it's soft, and the clay's been a little bit mangled, I think, but I think that might be partly because of stones falling in, it might be partly because we've got a lot of nettles here, and the roots have just come right up through it and broken it up. But you can see here, things start to get a wee bit different. We've got this reddish colour to it, and it definitely looks like there's been some sort of burning in situ in this area, which doesn't necessarily relate to the fireplace. There may be something going on there which we haven't quite teased out yet, but the fireplace itself definitely looks like it has two phases. So this again might be to do with the school getting a wee bit of money and being able to upgrade. So I suspect what's been here originally has just been this shape with a big hearthstone, and the fire's just been on top of that, and it's been quite basic. But later on, these bits of stone have been put in, mortared in place, and you've got cast iron. A cast iron grate's been put in, and perhaps it was something similar to the fireplace at the other end, where you had a proper stove or some sort of structure to it. We've had quite a lot of soot and bits and pieces out of here as well. There's this soot has fallen down in amongst here. And I've just been cleaning this up, and I'm thinking it might be a drain perhaps, possibly passing right out of the building. And that's something you do find underneath clay floor buildings. So I don't know, maybe with the slope that you've got just outside there, it's they've needed to deal with some water problems. But this end of the building, it just doesn't seem so complex. It doesn't look as if it's had as much done to it. So it's certainly not had the plaster on the walls, because we have had bits of plaster, but I think it's just stuff that's been mixed around, but nothing like the quantities that we've had at the far end of the building. So perhaps this had a wooden lining. It's a possibility. It's quite hard to say really. We'd expect to see dukes in the walls, little wooden pegs which would have held up a framework. but then we can't see that at the far end either because a lot of the mortar's gone and it's quite hard to see. Again, there's another example of things being robbed out. We've had a big stone lintel over the fireplace, and that's gone, and I suspect that's led to a lot of this collapse here. So quite a different story really between each end, but it may be that when we come down to the clay floor at the far end there, we end up with a more unified structure, and we're seeing evidence of money being spent in one specific area. You know, they've really upgraded one part of the building. So the question is whether that was to do with making things better for the kids or making things better for the teachers.